All right, good morning out there. Today is Monday, November 17th, 2025. I'm Anthony, and this is Drive Dive. And so today I'd like to talk about this notion that you should control what you can control, right? To focus on that. And yes, the things that are beyond our control can be frustrating, and we may want to sink a lot of our thought and our energy into those things. Like, it's really just not productive. So, as an example, this really came up yesterday while we were driving home from my son's soccer game, which was like an interesting, tough game, and that there were a lot of takeaways from, in my opinion. And I kept trying to draw his attention to that as something that he could control. And so what I mean by that is, right, it was a tough game where the officiating was very questionable. Where it's a youth league, right? So like the other team, at times they were slide tackling, which isn't supposed to be allowed. There were a couple of like intentional headers that were not called, which not supposed to, which are not allowed at this level, right? I guess to prevent concussions and such, right? They want to discourage that, discourage intentional headers, discourage slide tackling, to prevent injury, to protect the safety of the player. There's our goalie scooped up the ball at one point, and as he's down, covering the ball, another kid comes in and like slide tackles, towards our keeper's head, and it was like, dude, like, call something here, please. The other team was just playing incredibly physical. Like, we were getting pushed around in the start of the first half, and we just weren't used to that style of play. And while things should have been called, by the officials, that's just not something that you can control, right? We can't control what the officials are doing, but we can control, what we do, how we respond. And if they're going to play physical, well, we need to figure out on the fly how to also play physical, stand our ground, within what are, I guess, the rules of that particular game. Again, how the officials are choosing to officiate, which rules they're enforcing or not. We then have to make those adjustments, right? Those are things we can control. You can sit and you can blame the ref, that they're not making the calls in your favor, or just making calls in general. But the more important thing is again, like, what can you control? And so I said to my son, as they have a tournament coming up next weekend, was that they actually played like really well when they started playing physical, right? They sort of rose to the occasion, where the other team, they had some players that were really skilled. We do as well, but we had to, I think, get to that level of physicality, aggressiveness, to see that come out. And so for me, the takeaway that I was trying to impress upon him, was that, well, then next week when we're getting ready for that tournament, like, let's remind the team, let's remind one another, like, hey, like, let's come out strong, let's come out physical. Not, obviously you don't want to get the officials throwing cards at you and whatever, but you're learning the rules of the game. You're learning that soccer can be and is, that physical of a sport, where you are going to go shoulder to shoulder, and at times get your arms up, maybe not out, right? But figuring all of that stuff out. I don't know. And in another context, right? It's, I guess what I'm struggling with myself right now is what you can control, what you can't. It has a lot to do with like relationships, in my household, be it with my wife, with my daughter, with my son, and with myself, right? What am I doing with my time? How am I making myself happy? How am I making them happy? Building relationships and improving upon, I don't know, whether it's habits, routines, and such, but to just control what I can, right? I can't always control, I guess, right? What people around me do, but I can be a better version of myself, right? And so instead of getting upset with my son for leaving his dirty socks around the living room or the hallway or bathroom or the basement or, right? All manner of places. I could get upset with him and be like, would you clean up already? You know, or just say, hey man, before you get to TV or before you get to video games, like let's take 5-10 minutes and, you know, do a walk around the house. Let's find your socks and get them in the wash, right? Get them in the hamper. There's a time when my daughter recently was playing with an ornament, Christmas ornament that we just picked up from a Disney cruise, and she threw it and broke. Like Mickey's head came off, Minnie's head came off. There's a little like backdrop surfboard thing that came off. The trees, palm trees on either side of the ornament didn't break off, surprisingly, but so the ornament's ruined, right? Unless I get some kind of, you know, crazy, not even crazy, but miracle glue. I was thinking about going to a model shop, like a hobby shop, you know, and asking for their assistance, maybe even some touch-up paint, stuff like that. Like, I don't know if it's worth it. I mean, whatever. But, you know, she threw it, and I could have yelled at her and everything, but instead I looked at her for a moment. You know, I think she looked back at me, and she knew she had done something wrong. She's only 3. And rather than get upset with her, I just, you know, I walked over to her and I just gave her a hug. I don't think she didn't mean to break the ornament, right? I mean, kids they're not mean-spirited, certainly not at 3, right? They're not mean-spirited, they're not spiteful, you know? Yeah, you know, and so we then just had a conversation about what we're allowed to throw. So, you know, we said you can throw balls and you can throw stuffed animals, right? And so a couple other times, you know, she threw something. I think I later then asked my son to throw something to me. I forget exactly what it was, but my daughter was sitting next to me at the time when he threw it, and I looked at her and I said, "Oh, was that a ball? Was that a stuffed animal?" Right? So kind of just poking fun at, well, like here I am, you know, establishing a rule and then quickly breaking it, but at the same time reminding her, like, hey, you know, come on, right? Balls and stuffed animals, things that aren't gonna break, right? I remember having that conversation with my son when he was this age. You know, it's like, this is not a toy, it's a decoration, right? So like different sets of rules and different ways to play or not play, right? With these items. And so it's just, control what you can, right? I mean, I can't control whether or not she's going to throw something, whether or not she understands, you know, the different things have value perhaps, or, you know, that we'd be upset if it got broken, or, you know, when things do break, sometimes we can fix them, other times they're just going in the trash, right? You're right, we can't fix everything, and you know, while she's going to come to understand that in time, like, she doesn't understand it now, right? And I can't control that, but what can I control? You know, I guess is, right, if it is her seeking attention, well, how can I give her more attention, right? I mean, I get all, you know, anxiety driven or like upset and angry when, you know, I'm trying to get my breakfast together and she wants to help, right? She's trying to scoop my oatmeal and she's making a mess and I'm getting all like now this is taking so much longer than it needs to. You know, but what can I control, right? And what is to be gained from, you know, such an interaction? Okay, fine, like, she wants to help. Okay, well, I mean, at some point she does have to learn how to, you know, use a spoon or a measuring cup. I measure my oatmeal. You know, so okay, I give her the scoop and I just encourage her, remind her, you know, like, are we moving fast or slow here, kid, right? Like, and the answer better be slow. You know, so it's like, okay, let's just, rather than ignore her and then have her engage in an attention-seeking behavior, good or bad, let's give her that attention. She wants to help. That's not a bad thing. Okay, let's allow her to help, you know, in a way that is actually helpful and productive, right? So I'm even thinking, like, okay, you know, my wife would like for me to clean more, right? As I guess anybody, you know, any household struggling with those types of responsibilities and each person doing their part. So, all right, well, my daughter wants the attention when I get home, and she wants to help. So, I could get a basket or something, and together we can take everything off of, the bathroom vanity, just put it in the basket. So I can spray and wipe down the vanity, and then together my daughter and I can take everything out of the basket, put it back on the vanity, right? Like, where was it? Let's put it back. There you go, right? It's like, I don't know, 2 birds, 3 birds, 1 stone, right? We're picking up on our communication skills and things. My daughter and I are spending some time together. I'm contributing, right, doing my part to cleaning up around the house. And that's that. So just control what you can. What can you do better? How can you be a better version of yourself? Whether that's, I don't know, as a husband, father, as a person, right? Work on your mindset, positivity versus negativity, right? And I think that is what controlling what you can sort of, lends itself to, is just being more positive, I think, and having that sort of mindset where it's, rather than sinking my time and energy into things that I can't control, and therefore efforts that won't bear any fruit, thinking about what we control, what we can tackle, and, where we can then at least potentially, see some positive outcome. So, that's it for me. Control what you can. Comment down below, like and subscribe. And if you comment, I can get back to you, right? I mean, those are, like I said, those are things that we can control. I'm going to keep putting stuff out there, sharing my thoughts, because it helps me feel good. I can't control whether or not you, comment, like, subscribe, or don't. But I'll focus on what this process is for me, what it does for me. It helps me process just some of the happenings within my life, and if you can glean any insights and whatnot into your life, well then, that's why we're here. So happy Monday. I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.